to do is open a new project. We're going to choose the architectural template. And when that comes up, you'll notice that all the levels, some default levels, site, and elevations have already been created. These pointers that you see in here are actually for the elevation markers. So the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our levels according to how the design of your island getaway is laid out, right? So we're going to take an elevation view, and you'll notice that Revit gives us 2 levels by default, right? And right now we're using the metric. So the general idea is that our site, let's look at the foundation of our site. If we establish a datum, and let's say that this datum is our ground floor. And the idea is that for every single item located within our foundation, we are going to put a level for that item. So our ground floor would represent the finished floor level, right? There would need to be, for example, the thickness of your floorboards, right? So let's say for this project we'll use tongue and groove. So there'll be another layer here, another level here, and that level will be the tongue and groove level. And if we look at the basic layout, you may have some floor joists below that, and you may also have some sort of footing, and that would need to sit on a foundation pad. And then the earth would be maybe around there. And depending on the nature of the foundation, it may be a pile foundation. So you may need to have, show your piles going down below the ground like that. In any case, what we are looking on here are a few levels. So let's highlight that. So we have the base of our footing, and that's there. That's the base of our footing. Then we have the top of our footing. We also have the top of the foundation pile. Then we also have our ground level. So let's extend those out. Then we also have the top of our floor joists. And then we have our finished floor level. Now, everyone's design might vary slightly, but all of these need to be layers that are identified within our drawing. Sorry, not layers, but levels. So if we go back to Revit now, we notice that we have 2 levels. So we're going to delete one of the levels because it's going to be a single floor building, and we're going to call this our ground finish floor. And yes, we want to rename the other levels. Now, what we want to do is to have, let's correct that. What we want to do is to have our other levels as what we call empty levels, right? So those levels are just going to be used for referencing, and you won't necessarily see them come on the list of levels that you see in here on your left. So to get empty levels, all we need to do is just copy this level. So we're going to copy this level down, and we're going to go down about the thickness of our tongue and groove board is going to be about 50 millimeters. Right? Then what we want to do is to change the scale of our drawing. So we're going to make that a little smaller just so we can see these levels here. And these empty levels, what I want us to do is to unlock it and have them be shorter than our main level. So we're going to call this level here, this is going to be, according to our sketch, this level is here, which is the top of the floor joist, right? So call this top of floor joist. And we could even choose a smaller scale so that can be smaller, just for our purposes. So top of floor joist, then we're going to go down another level again, and this will be top. We're going to copy that first, and this will be top of footing. Right, and the distance here would be the height of the floor joist, if you can see here. So this will be top of footing. So we're going to click on that. And we're going to put a dimension line. So we're going to just choose dimension there and drop a dimension here. And I'm going to assume the height of this is going to be about 200 millimeters. There we go. Then we're going to now have the top of or the bottom of footing, we could call it that way. So we're going to call it bottom of footing, right? And what I'm doing, I'm just copying these, and to copy, I'm just doing CO. And then we're going to call this base of foundation pad. Right? And this distance, this might vary depending on the height of the project. So I'm good with imperial, so I'm going to make this, I'm going to click on this and make this about maybe 4 feet. So I can write 4 feet, and it will actually change it to millimeters for me. So it's about 1,200 millimeters. Then the base of my pad, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to make mine about 18 inches. So click on that, 18 inches, which is about 450. All right. So pretty much we've set out most of our levels. Let's make sure that these are aligned. All right, so this should be the only one that's out. Then on the top of our finished floor. So at this point, what we're going to do is to use our reference image. And if we look here, we see where we have our reference image. So far we've drawn the footing, and we've put in most of these levels to match what we have here. So we have up to that point. That is the top of the footing. And we actually have a member that's actually right here, right? So that's that member that we're seeing there. That's actually before we get to our level with our rafters, right? So we're using this as a reference to create our foundation. So we are gonna ensure that we have, this one is called a bearer in this particular drawing. So after we have the foundation, we're going to have the bearer, and then we have the joist. So we're actually going to edit this one, and we're going to call this top of bearer joist, which in this case wouldn't be 200. This would be about 100. And then on top of that now, we would have our floor joist, top of floor joist. And on top of that, we would have our finish, our ground finish floor. So the top of the floor joist here is going to be 200. So we're going to click on that. And then the top of the finished floor, well, that will be about 50 as we had before. So we click on the top one. Now we're going to make that 50. All right. So if we look back at our reference, we have space for the bearer joist, and then we also have the floor joist there. All right, so now what we need to do is to start modeling our footing, right? And the designs may vary, but we're going to use a default footing. Now I'm going to switch to our ground finish floor level, right? Notice that you're not seeing the other levels here because those are empty levels, which I use only for referencing. So the first thing we're going to do is put an outline for the base of our building. So we are going to use some reference lines for that. So we're going to use a reference planes as a guide to know where our building footprint will be. So we're going to go to here and we're going to choose reference plane, and well, I'm just going to draw out my building like that, and I'm just going to go over and edit it. So I believe we are using 6 meters. That is my footprint. Yours may vary slightly, so we're going to put this at 6,000. Between here and here is going to be 6,000, and that's about it. So this is pretty much the size of our building there, right? And we know we're going to have our footing inside this area. So the first thing that we want to do is draw one of our foundation footing, right? And we're going to be using this as our kind of guide. And we can also use our sketch as well, right? I'm actually using OneNote here with my tablet so that I can be able to sketch this out. So you guys should have a sketch that you're using as your guide. And we're going to now model this foundation footing. So the first thing we're going to do is, let's assume that the foundation footing is in this area, right? So just to kind of map out our game plan, we are going to be basically drawing our footings like that, and like that, and like that, like that. And essentially our bearer that we saw earlier would be actually running across these areas like that. As a matter of fact, if the edge, if this is our building footprint, then we would actually be wanting to move our foundation footing over a little bit. So our footing, we would actually want to be like about that, so that the center of our footing is there and the bearer member would run along like that, so that it is on our footprint. So that is just a quick kind of overview of what we are aiming to do, right? So we're going to draw the footing as a model in place. So we're going to go over to component, we're going to go to model in place, and we are going to be doing the foundation footing as well. You actually have structural foundation that's there. So we're going to choose OK. I'm going to call this footing, and the type of modeling that we'll be doing will be in using the extrusion, right? So we're gonna assume that the footing will be about 450 millimeters wide. So we're going to use our reference plane to kind of guide where that footing will go. So generally our footing wants to be about 150 from this line. We're going to draw, we're going to create, and we go back to reference plane. We're going to draw another one here. So we're going to make that about 150, right? And we know that this needs to be about 450 offset. So we're going to click that and we'll copy. And we're going to make that 450. We can just type that in. And we're going to do the same here, copy, and make this 450. And then from that, we know that the top of our footing, if we go here, that we're going to be looking on that. We're going to be copying this up, about 150. And putting that there and copying this over 150. All right. Oops. Sorry, we're going to use reference plane, not reference line. We're copying that over 150. All right, so this is the center of our footing. Of course, nothing is in 3D yet. These are just simple guidelines that we're going to use. So to actually start modeling, we're going to go to create, and we're going to use the extrusion command. And this is going to carry us into sketch mode. So we're going to draw the base of that extrusion. So we're going to just use the rectangle tool, and we are going to be drawing on a particular level. So this part is important. Remember, we created those levels. So we're going to set our levels before we start modeling. Click that and we go set levels, and we want to actually be drawing this on the bottom of foundation pad, right? Because this is the bottom of the foundation pad. So we choose OK, and then we're going to be drawing this like that. That's great. Now what we can actually do is we can look at this in 3D. So we can go to our 3D view, and that's it there, and we want to choose OK, and that's our extrusion. So if we look back in that view that we had, you can actually see, I think we had the east view, north view, right? So we can actually see here where we have the base of the foundation pad and the bottom of footing. So this is actually this high, like that. So this was the purpose of us setting up the levels, right? So if we go back to 3D, that is our foundation footing. So next, we are going to create another extrusion now, which is going to be on top of this. So to do that, we're going to go back to our plan view. So we created this already. So we are going to actually create, and we're going to create another extrusion. And we're going to set that now. So that level needs to be at the bottom of footing. And we're going to put that, we're going to use the rectangle tool and draw that like that. And to set the height, we can go back to, we can actually go to our, we can choose OK, and then go to our 3D view. That's here. And that's our pad, that's our footing. So we can actually go to our north view here, and we can make that height, right? So far we're okay. Let's change this to shaded view. We have the footing, and we have this up to the top of footing. Now for that bearer joist which runs on top of this. So remember that we're using our guide, which is here, and we're going to be using this bearer joist here. So we're going to assume that this bearer joist is probably 100 by 100 millimeters, and that's going to sit within this here, because this is this level here is our bearer joist level, top of bearer joist. Now we don't want that to become a part of the footing model, so we're going to choose OK. And now if you click this, you notice that this is one model by itself. So if we look in our 3D view, you actually see the model there. And if you click on it, it will tell you that it is a structural foundation that we have created, which is great. So let's go back to our ground floor, and notice that we're not seeing it here, and that's because it's actually below our ground plane, right? And to adjust that, we are going to go over to our view range, and our view range is simply telling us that we need to be able to see our view depth. We need to be able to see about, to find what this figure is, we could use a north view. If this is our ground floor, we need to be able to see all the way down to this level. So if we actually use a dimension line, we need to see at least 2000 millimeters below the ground level. So let's go back to our ground floor, and let's go to view range, and we need to see 2000 millimeters as our view depth. And we also need the bottom of our view to be 2000 millimeters, which is really negative 2000. So this doesn't have to be 2000. There we go. So now notice that you see the footing because you're now able to see 2000 millimeters below our ground plane, right? Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to put in that member that runs around the edge, which is our bearer. And before we do that, what we want to do is copy this footing. Now we're not just going to copy it, we are going to actually make this member into a group by clicking the group icon here. And we're going to call this footing group. And the reason we're making it a group, and I'll show you that in a sec. So we're going to copy it. I use the shortcut CO. So I'm going to copy it from here and put it over here. And then we're going to select both of these. We're going to copy these here, place that over here. Now, the fact that we made it a group means that if we needed, for any reason, to edit this group, so we can double click this and we can change that. And what happens if we change it, this for example, then notice they will all change, right? Which is great. So we're going to undo that because we actually don't want to change it. There we go. All right. So now we need to run that member along the edges here. So we're going to go to now component and model in place again. But this time it's asking us to save, so it's a good idea to hit save now. So now that we've saved, in creating this member, we are going to actually make this member a type of structural framing, right? So we're going to choose OK, and we're going to call this bearer member. And this member, remember, is going to be 100 by 100, and we're going to let it run on the outer section of the foundation, right? Which is what is happening here. So to do that, we are going to make it an extrusion, and we're going to actually have one member starting from here, up and over by 100, and down again. Of course, you could also use the rectangle sketch to do that. Great. Oh, we actually need to place this on a level. So we need to select that and choose set the work plane, and this level needs to be the top of footing, right? And the top of the footing would be here. All right, so we're going to choose OK, and we can look at that in 3D and see it's at the top of the footing, and we're going to choose yes for that. So we have that member going across, which is great. And now we need to have this member going across the others, the areas. So what we're going to do is copy this using our 3D view over to here, and we're going to copy it one more time, and we're going to use our rotate. I'm going to rotate that 90 degrees, and we're going to move this, shortcut MV. So we're going to move this all the way to here, land that there, and then we are going to adjust this to line up there and copy this using here. You can see that, and place it, well, let's use a top view for this. Good. We're gonna move it there and paste it there. All right. So We have now drawn that member there now, so we're going to choose finish, and there is that member there. And next, so we can turn on our shaded view, shadows there, so you can see what that looks like. Okay, so that's what it looks like. Then next, now we are going to put our floor joists going across in a selected direction. So we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to go to our ground floor, and we're going to go to architecture, and we're going to go to model in place. And we could also use this model as a structural framing. It is a type of structural framing. I'm going to call these floor joists. Now we're going to create one joist first. So we're going to use the extrude command, and our joist is going to measure, that's these here. So we want to make it 50 by 200. So let's draw the first joist at the end. So we're going to allow that joist to be land right here. So we're going to use this tool this time, and let's use here. So we're going to go across by 50, and we're going to come down like that, and go across and go back up. And of course this level, so we're going to select, we're going to select this joist, and we're going to set this level to top of bare joist, right? So remember, that is the top of the bare joist. That's why we choose that level. We're going to choose OK. We can look on that in 3D, and we see where that's now going to be on top here. Oh, actually our bare joist is too tall, so we need to fix that. So let's choose OK, and let's go back. Let's choose OK again. And we're going to go back into our bare joist here. We're going to double click that to go into that, and we are going to actually edit these guys. So we're going to select all of them, holding Control, and we're going to set the extrusions end to, I believe it was 100, right? So it's 100 by 100, apply, there we go. There we go. So if we look at our north view, we are going in alignment with everything. So top of bare joist is at the top, and we need to of course make our joist here, which says top of joist. So we are going to go into our 3D view, and we're going to select that, and we're going to make this member here, edit it by double clicking, and we are going to make this 200. All right, now we are going to now create a array so that we can have members going all the way across like that. So we're going to use the array tool, and the way how this works, it's really simple. You click the array tool here, you choose a point that you want to use as your starting or reference point. So let me choose here. Before I choose that, I want to say that I want to choose the last member. So I'm going to choose the first member, which is this, and the last member, which is that, and then I will choose how much divisions I would want. So to do that, I'm going to choose this point here, and then choose that point here. And I'm going to want, let's try 15 members, see what that looks like. So I can put 15 here. So I'm going to choose, press enter. And I can always change this amount. Let's see, if I go to the ground floor and I look at the distances, I see where My distance is about 425. That's okay. That's actually okay. And the great thing about using this method is that I can change the amount anytime. So I'm just going to choose finish, and then I have my four members here. So let's look back at our reference image. Next, we want to have our actual flooring, and notice the flooring comes before the bottom plate or sole plate. So the flooring in our case is going to be tongue and groove boards. So we're going to do the same thing again, and we're going to have the flooring coming this way. Now, if we look at the profile of a tongue and groove board, if we go back here, we can use OneNote. We can place all our notes in OneNote, so that's great. You know, so this is the general shape of a tongue and groove board, and if we think about using some measurements, we can actually use this as a great reference. So now we're going to model our tongue and groove boards.